Also, a lot of people who have gathered outside the governor's mansion. That is in Buckhead. They are standing there trying to get their point across to Governor Brian Kemp, who has been supportive of the idea of peaceful protests, who has come out against the killing of George Floyd in Minnesota, and said that he was upset by what he saw in that videotape. And so these protesters have come to try to get their point across to him. Brittany Miller is there by the governor's mansion. She is joining us there live. And Brittany, why don't you set the scene for us?
So you can hear people honking horns. Many people have lined West Pace's Ferry here for day 2 of protests, which are now underway in Atlanta. They want justice and they want it now. Of course, you can see it's very peaceful. People are just standing here holding their signs. But just 24 hours ago, it was the same scene in downtown Atlanta. But we know that changed very quickly. Go ahead and take a look. Okay, as we wait to get to the package, I will just set the scene for you here and walk you through what we are seeing here across the street from the governor's mansion. You can see they're holding their signs high. One thing that I noticed as soon as I got to the scene here is that there is a mixed bag of people in terms of their backgrounds. A lot of different people are here, but I just want to once again show you what it was like in downtown Atlanta just one day ago. It started as a peaceful protest meant to spark justice. Thousands of people stepping in solidarity through the streets of downtown Atlanta.
No one is protecting the rights of our people. What is our recourse?
It has to stop. It has to stop.
From Centennial Olympic Park to the Capitol and back around, where protesters were then met with lines of Atlanta police officers.
I don't stand for us!
As time passed, tensions continued to grow. Then CBS 46 cameras rolled as the first clash between police and protesters erupted. As the sun went down, bursts of violence gave way to pure mayhem.
Look! Hey, get there! Hey, look, on TV!
Windows of restaurants and hotels shattered, the air thick with smoke and tear gas.
So what I see happening on the streets of Atlanta is not Atlanta. This is not a protest. This is not in the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. This is chaos.
No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace! No justice.
Okay, we're back out here live at the governor's mansion. You could hear them chanting, no justice, no peace. Of course, peace is what we had yesterday, and that quickly changed in a matter of seconds. The question now is, you see dozens of people here. Will this move to the hundreds? Will it move to the thousands? Of course, we're going to continue to give you live coverage, as this is probably a very evolving situation, as it was yesterday in downtown Atlanta. That's the latest from live here in Buckhead. I'll send it back to you guys.
Brittany, before we let you go, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, she has just issued an executive order establishing a curfew in the entire territorial jurisdiction of the city of Atlanta, which includes the governor's mansion. That curfew is set to start at 9 o'clock tonight and ends at sunrise tomorrow. Can you see how long those protesters are willing to stay out there? Will they stay after the sun sets, once it gets dark? Would they violate the mayor's curfew if they feel like their message has not been heard by the governor?
You know, Sean, one thing I've learned from these experiences, especially yesterday, this is unpredictable. We do not know what's going to happen minute by minute. So we can say, yes, they're going to abide by the governor's order or the mayor's order, but we don't know if that's actually going to hold true, because as we saw yesterday, a completely different group of people moved in on the protest last night. So we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We're just going to have to roll the punches here and see what happens come 9 o'clock tonight.
We're also seeing, Brittany, that the governor has increased the number of Georgia National Guard members available to help out if need be. Last night that number was 500, but he's upped it now to 1,500. And I'm just wondering, as you look around that scene there and in front of the governor's mansion, do you see the Georgia National Guard? What kind of police presence is there out in front of the governor's mansion as these protesters are across the street?
So one thing I can tell you is that the governor's mansion always has security. There's always Georgia State Patrol here. But let's just move over closer to the street so you can see how many officers are here. This is something we saw as soon as we got on the scene. We saw Atlanta police officers move onto the street, standing in the middle of the street, because they are heavily enforcing that we cannot move onto West Paces Ferry Road. In fact, I'll tell you, I stepped off of the sidewalk into the street, just 1 foot, and they immediately said, get back, get back. So they're being very strict with that rule and that nobody can go into the street. And even if you look beyond that, you can see Georgia State Patrol officers. Even if you look past the gate, Steve, I don't know if you can see that. We see men in uniform. We see Georgia State Patrol as well. I'm just trying to go on my tippy toes so I can see over the crowd here. But there's law enforcement everywhere. At every inch of the governor's property, the governor's mansion, all you see are men in uniform.
Brittany, how would you compare the presence of police and how close they are to the protesters and how they're responding to protesters today versus how they responded to them yesterday? Do you see any stark differences?
So what time is it now? 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock this time yesterday, things were starting to get pretty intense outside of downtown Atlanta. The difference is that we weren't enclosed, so to speak, and we had to stay on the sidewalk. That was spilling onto the street. Here we are confined to the sidewalk, and so people are less likely to go onto the street because officers are right here standing in front of them. So right now I haven't seen any clashes. I haven't seen people get too close to officers. This time yesterday, we saw them face to face. So that is a major difference that I'm seeing now. It seems to be a little bit more peaceful than it was this time yesterday in downtown Atlanta. It's hard to say exactly why that is. I can say that geographically it's just a different setup. So you're going to have to protest and demonstrate a bit differently, because keep in mind we have a huge roadway that is dividing the people from the actual governor's mansion. Now, whether they decide to step out into the street once we move into the hundreds and the thousands of people, if it comes to that, that's going to be a completely different story. And that is when we will most likely see any interaction between the people and police here in Buckhead.
Brittany, we have both you and Ayanna Crystal in two different vantage points outside the governor's mansion. It looks like someone just got arrested.
Something's happening right now. We're seeing a woman that is being taken away. We have no idea what just happened. Does anyone know what happened or what she did?
She was just in the road, I guess.
She was in the road? Yeah. Okay. So as I just said, they're being very strict with not staying in the street, so we're going to roll on this. They're chanting, let her go, let her go. Another person now walking over. It looks like she's being handcuffed right now. She's being handcuffed for apparently stepping into the road. I just told you how strict they were being with people maintaining and staying on the sidewalk. And this is evidence. This is pure evidence of what I was just saying to you guys. Apparently she was in the street and now she's being handcuffed next to an Atlanta police car. So for lack of a better phrase, they are not messing around today, especially considering everything that happened in downtown Atlanta yesterday. You can hear the crowd getting louder and louder, chanting, let her go, let her go. The officers instead, it looks like, are talking to her, and we don't know if they're detaining her right now, but we want to stay on this. Can we go back over here just so we can see what's happening with her and stay on this just in case anything happens? We want to make sure we get everything that unfolds. We have 3 officers talking to this one person who was allegedly just standing in the street. And it looks like they're taking her things. I think her friend is over here on the grass. Again, you can hear the crowd chanting, let her go, let her go. People are very upset. Her hands are behind her back. 2 officers next to her, again, for being in the street. This is how strict they are with people getting back into the road.
You know, Brittany, it does seem like the police officers have different marching orders today than they did yesterday. They are not, as you said, they're not messing around. And if they tell people they want them off the streets, they may give them one warning or so, but then if they don't get off the streets, that's it. You see what happened to that young woman who was playing, she was just beating a tom-tom drum with her feet. We saw her, she was sitting on the curb with her feet on the street. They must have told her to leave and she didn't do it.
And Brittany, I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. There are going to be some individuals who will look at this and say, well, maybe the police are being more strict and having less leeway because this is in front of the governor's mansion.
Right, that's definitely something to take into consideration. You have to look at where we are. We are in front of the governor. So, like I said, and I'll probably say it a couple more times today, they are not messing around. Whereas yesterday, we heard 4 final warnings given by police officers as they asked police to get out of the street, move onto the sidewalk. But there's just such a heavy police presence here. Whereas yesterday, we saw that police presence grow hour by hour. As soon as I got out the car here in Buckhead, I saw nothing but police officers. But they are willing to take you away in what seems or what looks like zip ties or handcuffs for simply standing in the street. So there's no telling what they're going to do if and when anyone does anything more than that. But I'm definitely shocked to see this so early. As I was trying to tell you just a few minutes ago, things change hour by hour. So it's so hard to predict these situations and see or tell you what's going to happen in the next few minutes or even the next few seconds, Sean and Rick.